Hey guys, Fight Commentary Breakdowns. This is going on Fight Commentary Chats, most likely. We have Gabe here from Kaiju, and I wanted to bring him on one because he runs a really successful jiu-jitsu school, but also Adrian, who you've seen on the channel. Adrian's at Kaiju, and then Trevor Smith trained at Tsunami, which I know is another branch of Kaiju. So wanted to bring on Gabe here. So Gabe, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, man. So, let's talk about running a jiu-jitsu school. What goes into that? We see a lot of jiu-jitsu schools all around, but what is the day-to-day like in running a jiu-jitsu school?
It is nothing but fun, excitement, and glamour. No, it's a lot of sleep, and prior to COVID, we had a larger staff. I'm currently a two-person operation, a rebuild. So it means getting up at 4 a.m., checking my phone, looking at emails and text messages, going for a run with my dogs before I teach the 6 a.m. class. Then going back to doing back end stuff, which is checking members and ensuring that everyone is being paid and being taken care of. Once again, dealing with emails and a lot of emails and a lot of social media, teaching a lot of classes, cleaning, yeah, a lot of glamour stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a labor of love. I love doing what I do, but it's definitely not easy. And to be a success at it, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, yeah. It's I love that you shared this, Gabe, because it's kind of the similar to making a YouTube channel, right? Most of what you don't see is like the labor of love stuff. It's the stuff that kind of like nobody wants to do, right? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's I clean toilets. I clean mats. I am constantly taking care of the stuff that other people don't want to do, or that need to be done to keep a business going. Obviously the teaching is the part that I appreciate the most and the funnest part. But that's not what runs a business. That's the fun part. And so I transitioned from being just an instructor to being an owner. And being an instructor was so much better because you go and get a paycheck, and you get to have fun, and then when your hour and a half class is done, you get to go home or get to hang out and do whatever you want. Whereas when I'm done, I'm either staying for other classes to make sure they're being treated right. We have students coming in doing getting them through their paperwork and getting them moved into the programs, making sure they're enjoying the programs. Dealing with a lot of anyone has a complaint, it immediately comes to me, and doing damage control and accounts payable, and it's a lot of work, which is not fun, but it just goes with running a business.
Exactly. So let's talk about your martial arts journey then. Did you start out doing jujitsu, or kind of you dabbled and then eventually settled on jujitsu?
Yeah, so I mean, I tried doing hip keto as a little kid. Didn't really do anything. I think I made like 5 or 6 classes. And then as a teenager, I did Kung Fu Sansu. I did that for about 2 years. Actually, even going into when I first moved to the Bay Area, I was doing Kung Fu in Oakland, and then I started doing Jiu-Jitsu, and completely changed my life in the respect that like I was just enamored day one and signed up that day, and going on my I think 23rd year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
like
That
starting.
seems like the journey most people. It's like once they get into jujitsu, whatever they did before, they're like, okay, all right, jujitsu's the main thing now.
Well, I mean, so I remember in high school I was doing kung fu, and my kung fu instructor had us believing that kung fu was so deadly, and like it was one punch, one kill type of thing, and I remember watched UFC 4 at my friend's house, and it's funny because my friend Sean was like, "Oh, there's this little Mexican guy. He's 150 pounds. He's destroying everybody." Turns out he was Brazilian. Sean happened to be Mexican, so he wanted like that, we have the same bloodline essentially, so that's why he's this badass. And it was Royce Gracie, and I remember going to my kung fu instructor and bringing it up, and he lost his mind. Sansu has anti-grappling. That stuff's just bullshit for TV. Blah 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 blah. And I remember getting so angry about it that I was like even more interested in it. Like what would make my Sifu so angry about? And then I tried jiu-jitsu, and I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You learn day one, you know. I mean, I don't know most schools. I don't know about all schools, but I started at Half Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and they basically went over like 20 minutes of technique, and they threw me to the wolves, and I just got eaten alive. I got tapped left and right, and so I learned day one that it works. You know what I mean? Whereas Kung Fu, I did it for 2 years, and we never ever got to really spar. It was like, okay, throw a punch. No, not a punch like this. Throw a punch like this, and then like everything was very, very choreographed. And so yeah, I just fell in love with it, and here I am. Yeah, 23 years later.
Yeah. It's really funny hearing that word anti-grappling. I love it. Anti-grappling. Any school that says we have anti-grappling probably doesn't know what real grappling is.
He taught it. I remember he taught a move that night. I don't remember what move it was. I just remember it in my 16, 17-year-old mind being like, I don't think that would really work. But, you know, you're still going to listen to your instructor and do what's necessary. So, yeah.
So eventually in this journey, you had kind of a section of your life where you were a pro fighter. So let's talk about that, if that's okay with you.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I was doing jiu-jitsu, and then I got into kickboxing, and then I did like a couple of sanshou, which is like kickboxing with throws. I went to Japan for 2 months, trained with a lot of the high-level pros at that point, and I mean, I didn't do great with them, but I would hang with a few of them grappling wise, and you know, I was like, let me just try this out. Let me see if I can do it. And it certainly was. I mean, you have to understand, my first fight was in 2002, which is the dark ages of MMA. The UFC didn't, they were not sanctioned anywhere. I think they'd just been bought by Zuffa. We're very, very in like the very infant stages. There were no fight. I remember I fought in the first legal Nevada outside of Vegas fight when it became legal in Nevada. I fought on, you know, illegal shows in California. So like it's, you know, 2002 is, a lot of people don't understand that it was illegal. I remember I think one of my third or fourth fight, the promoter goes, okay, it was at a nightclub in Hollywood, and the promoter goes, okay, listen, if we get raided by the police, tell them it's pro wrestling, we'll bail you out. And I'm like, wait, what? What's gonna happen? You know, like it's illegal. Like you can go to jail for doing this, and for to see it to go. So you know, it wasn't for money, it wasn't for fame. It was completely underground, but I wanted to see if I could actually do it. I was terrified of it, and I loved jiu-jitsu, and I loved doing kickboxing, and it seemed like MMA was the real battleground to see if your work or what you did was efficient or not. So that was why I took my first fight in 2002, and then once again got caught with the bug, and I think I spent 9-10 years fighting.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of us forget about those dark days when I think it was Senator John McCain at the time or something, right? And he's like, "Oh, this is what ban this," and then for a while I remember even in UFC they could only slap or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the ways that we got around it in California is we would have fights on Indian reservation. The sovereign land, they can basically do whatever they want. I mean, they would have fights. I remember guys would wear shoes. You know, the gloves were whatever gloves you wanted to bring with you. I mean, you know, it was no holds barred in a lot of ways. But that was the way we got around at least in California. Either that or they were underground, you know, fights where you could go to jail. But yeah, McCain, you know, for better or worse, for worse, had this massive push to but my understanding is it was the boxing commissions that were funding that, because it could have been a massive loss of revenue, and we see now what's happened to the UFC versus boxing. Yeah. Now, you know, and even now, I remember the last marquee boxing match that you know sold the amount of pay-per-views that they're doing. I mean, I think it was like probably Conor versus Mayweather, probably.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, like, which is actually a crossover fight. But yeah, so yeah, the dark ages of fighting. So you know, I think I made $200 for my first MMA fight. So
wow,
WC title for I think $500.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your most memorable fight? The fight, like if you ever in a bar start telling stories, you talk about that fight. Do you have one or two, or are all of them memorable?
I mean, they're memorable and not at the same time. I mean, I know a lot of of fights where I was tested, and I think 2 fights in particular where one was a win and one was a loss. I fought at the against Savant Young, who's a really accomplished MMA fighter here in California. He's fought a who's who, tough dude, and he beat my ass for 2 rounds. I mean, basically, I went back to my corner in the end of the second round, and my corner says, that last round was probably a 10-7. He beat you so bad that there's no way you can come back from that. And then I took him down and submitted him, which was, I mean, I felt like as far as you always question how you're going to do in points of adversity. And, I passed that test. And then another fight, I can't remember the kid's name, tough wrestler. It was my first fight back after having my neck fused. I spent a year recovering from neck fusion, and this kid took me down and beat my ass for 3 rounds. And I remember I couldn't chew for about 3 weeks because of how swollen my face was. But I remember afterwards, I was walking around and some random guy walked up to me. He's like, I can't believe, like, I thought you were going to quit. I thought you were going to tap. You're going to tap. And I was like, why would I tap? I was about to win. You know what I mean? So I think moments like that are probably the most memorable, because like you get a real test of your inner fortitude. There are fights that I won in 30 seconds, and there are fights that, I've lost. And I think my all of those still weigh with me, and I still definitely will think about them. But the fights where I had to, kind of battle through my adversity are probably the ones that are most memorable.
Yeah, I love that you shared stories like that, because I think a lot of the casual audience that watches MMA, they don't understand the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into even taking one punch, right? And then like they'll laugh at someone getting ground and pound, or they'll like criticize a fighter for losing. It's like, yeah, you take that punishment,
That's everyone is a couch quarterback. You know what I mean? How many people say, "Oh, that guy sucks"? That guy, like they watch the NFL and they talk about how the team sucks. They are the most elite athletes. I have a former student who was a Division I football player. But if you get to Division I, you are a fucking badass.
Yeah.
I asked him, like, was anybody on your team? Did they ever get scouted? He's like, oh, one guy got scouted, but he didn't get picked up. I think he was on the practice team for the NFL. Like, or even like the newest one is like Simone Biles, the gymnast. Like everyone's like, oh, she should have kept going. Fuck you. Shut up. Like you've never been to that level. You have no idea what she's dealing with. You have no idea. She's already a gold medalist multiple times. She can do whatever the fuck she wants to do. And if she's dealing with mental problems, that's on her. Like you're not in their journey. Yeah. You can't fucking sit there and talk about anybody. And fighting is just one of those things that we watch it. And I was a fan before I was a fighter, and I remember distinctly being in the arenas and hearing people talk about that guy sucks. I'd hit him so hard he'd knock. I'm like, dude, no, you fucking moron. And I've had people that have come into the gym like, I could be a pro fighter, and they learn really quick that fucking what you watch on TV. It'd be like me being like, I could do NASCAR. I drive fast on the freeway. I've been on the 405 when no one's around. I can drive fast. It's stupid. It's human nature to want to talk poorly about people that are doing things on an elite level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I tell my audience, and I will always maintain for my brand, I'm not even like an amateur. I'm just a guy who likes martial arts, I'm just a guy who likes martial arts. And that's how I'm always going to be. Because like you said, I've talked to enough pros. I've talked to enough amateurs. I know how hard it is. And it's like, that's why it gives me extra incentive sometimes to feature these like fake masters. Because it's like, come on, you guys. Like, it gives an extra incentive for me. And it's not even like calling them out. It's just like, okay, let's examine these guys. Let's be respectful. Let's examine these guys. Let's like think about it.
Let's be honest. I mean, that like anyone that call out those that are full of shit. I think that those that are full of shit should be called out. I think it's important that, like, I talk about this all the time. Like, when I was a kid, I thought the movie Bloodsport was real. Like, he told me, like, in the thing, Frank Dukes went to a fucking studio and was, look, this is my life story. And they're like, really? Holy fuck! It was written as a biography. Like, when I watch that fucking steaming pile of shit now, and I love it because it holds this nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's a steaming pile of shit.
Yeah.
Someone came to me right now and was like, you know what? I went to Hong Kong and I fought in an underground kumite, and I won the whole thing and be like, what's a kumite? Oh, you don't know. It's a fight to the death. Fought to the death. Yeah. And I fought multiple times and like, fuck you, shut up. Like, like again, expose the bullshitters. It's important to like, you know, the time frame when you could do that shit in martial arts is come and gone because we have social media, because we have reality based. And you know, I still have people like, yeah, you know, there's styles out there that are too deadly for the UFC, and that's why they're shut up. Just shut up. I did Kung Fu Sansu. I did a style which is, you know, one punch, one kill. Bullshit. 100% bullshit.
Yeah. And it's really funny because despite social media giving people potential to access everything, what ends up happening due to algorithms is that people get into their own echo chambers even more. Like, it's crazy. Like, there was a guy, again, he was well-intentioned, but he wanted a critique of his video, and ultimately, I didn't release the video. I just like, okay, you take this as like basically like almost like he paid me money to consult, because I realized like he didn't realize how bad he was. But like, this guy legitimately wanted to teach the Taiwanese military his Wing Chun, and like, this is a guy who's like this, you know, this is how he pucks out, and I'm like, so you've never been punched ever? And it's like, you know, I realize if my video can bring him a little bit out of his bubble, that's enough. I don't need to like get him embarrassed and make him like suicidal almost. But it's like, so like the social media still can get people, even nowadays, young people, to like be in their own echo chambers and not see reality. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, look, truth is what is depending on what you want your truth to be. And we see that with politics. We see that with any number of things. You know, I want to believe this enough that I'm going to find something that's going to suit my belief system. You know what I mean? And but I still feel it's important to out the bullshitters, like the fucking. I mean, I think you're being nicer about it than I would be. You're full of shit. Like, really, you're genuine. And then the other part is martial arts, because it's utilized for self-defense. You're going to get someone fucking killed or hurt badly because of the bullshit you have them believing. And like, there's nothing worse than a stupid, confident person. Like, if you're stupid and confident, you're a fucking danger, and not in a good way. You're going to get hurt, or you're going to get someone else hurt. You know what I mean? So like, I know, fucking call out the bullshitters. I'm sorry, but I have no sympathy for those that get caught up in bullshit and start to believe the bullshit. I mean, look, you know, I at some point you need to come to reality. But once again, even though we have truths and we can go, like, we see it with everything that truth is what you want truth to be.
Yeah, it's really refreshing talking to you, because when I started out my channel, I started like finding those fakes. Like, that's the passion I felt. And I feel like you have it, and I love it. So I think the next thing we need to do is I need to like come visit you, or you need to come to Santa Monica. We need to make some videos together in person, because I feel like your vibe is exactly my channel before, you know, YouTube got more strict with everything. So, you know, I'm much more nice now on YouTube, but when I first started, I was just like calling it. I was just like being mean and everything.
Yeah, I think that the social media groups have gone a little overboard with what you know. I jokingly made some comment on Facebook, and I've never been in Facebook jail, but I was warned that, and then they took down my comment, and it was just the funny part is I put the comment back up with parentheses, and somehow if I put it in parentheses, somehow it was okay now. It's just silly. It's silly, but you know, I mean. I guess everyone needs to quote unquote feel safe. So.
Yeah, and I think another thing that we kind of forgot was that a lot of these social media platforms, they're still, you know, they got a private group of people managing, and you know, they have their own agendas, right? Because I remember 2011, my Facebook was like I couldn't log in for a few hours because they suspected me of doing something. Of course, I didn't do it. But I was like, even in 2011, I was like, whoa, they can just go into your account? I thought it was no, it's not my account. I'm using their platform, right? Like, people always have to remember that. And that's why I always encourage people, if you have an idea, if you want to build your own website, you want to do something, do it, man. Like, this is the time right now. Really, just try to build whatever. Don't rely on big platforms, because they don't always serve the people we want them to serve people. They don't always do that. That's just anything that gets too big. It's not like a this or that thing. It's anything that gets too big. It leaves a lot of people behind.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So I think the perfect sort of segue now is, so eventually you got out of fighting, right? Was that a long decision? Was that kind of one spark that happened?
So I had I had a contract with the UFC. I lost my last fight and I was cut from my contract. They were saying, get 1 or 2 fights and we'll bring you back. I immediately after my fight, I had to have back surgery. And then I rushed to get back to fighting. So I gave myself only 6 months to recover from my back surgery. I lost my next fight after, because I was fighting a low-level guy and I got cocky about, I'll walk through this guy no matter what. And so I wasn't trained as well as I should have. And it was actually a very good life lesson, that no matter what, you can't take anybody lightly. You have to push yourself and work hard no matter what happens. So that way it was a good, and then, I fought, I lost. And then I was like, now I'm 3 fights on a 3-fight losing streak. I'm 30, was I 33? I had just had my first daughter. And I'm fighting these low-level promotions to get back to the UFC. And at 33, how much longevity do I have in my career? And I started to be realistic about that, and with my daughter, I needed to make real money. I needed to figure out, so actually I took a corporate job first. I did that for about 2 months. I'm not fit for that. I'm for after a 10-year period of just training jiu-jitsu and teaching and fighting, and I just wasn't. And I'd always taught private lessons, and even when I was fighting professionally, that was kind of the way I made money on top of, because fighting MMA is not as lucrative as people like to make it out to be. Even when you get to the UFC, when my first fight in the UFC was in 2007, and they were paying 4 and 4, 4,000 to 4,000 as their starting wage. Now it's at 10 and 10, but I think when I got re-signed, it was at 8 and 8, which is still not $16,000. And then you got to pay your 10% to your manager, and then you got to pay your training fees, and there's so much when you come home. And then this is even when I fought in the UFC, they hadn't taken away the sponsorship. So actually, I made really good money in sponsorship. And then they changed up the Reebok deal. But so I was looking at it like realistically, how many years do I have left doing this? I still loved it, but I had to be realistic. So I did corporate for about 2 months. It was not for me. So then I started teaching private lessons, and I really enjoyed just teaching private lessons. But then I was also, once again, looking at the reality of it. Like, is this what I'm going to do? Like, am I going to just teach private lessons and, float from gym to gym? And so I made the decision to, I had an opportunity to open up a gym with a friend. Well, he'd already opened the gym and needed a partner. So I came on, did that for about 3.5 years. Then as partnerships go, that's very, very common that you fall out of favor with each other. And then it was time to go off on my own, and best decision I ever made. I probably should have done it considerably earlier, but I absolutely love doing it. I love teaching. I love building. It's like with any business, there are days I'd rather do other stuff, but I mean, I'm still doing martial arts, and I'm helping people and growing people and dealing with an amazing group that I every day that I get to interact with. So yeah.
And from everyone that's interacted with you or anyone that's interacted with whether Kaiju or Tsunami, nothing but good things. I think out of all the schools in the LA area, I've heard the most good things about you guys. So I wonder, what is it about you guys? Is it just like you're awesome and all the people are in the school is awesome? What is it why do I always hear good things? By the way, shout out to Abel. I didn't realize that Abel's under you guys too. I know Abel too, so.
Yeah, Abel actually went and opened up his own school. Well, he attempted to open up his own school, and it just failed about 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm unfortunate, but once again, people it goes back to what I was saying. Like, running a business is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And we go out and even when I was going to go off on my own, I was terrified, you know, like, am I going to be able to do this? And, you know, people see the success that goes with it, and they feel like, oh, I could do that. You know, and Abel was one of our instructors and felt like, oh, you know, look, teaching's easy, you know, running a school must be just as easy. And it's, you know, I'm fortunate, actually, there was a massive learning curve when I became a partner first. I'm very fortunate that I spent 3.5 years, even with, you know, the dissolution being not a good one. I learned a lot, and I'm very, very fortunate that I had the opportunity to be in a partnership where you know, which helped me learn the back end and all the other stuff, which teaching is the fun part. That's the part that's amazing, you know. But yeah, so you know, I wish Abel well, and I have no ill will towards him. But yeah, he made the decision to go off on his own, and just didn't work. It was bad timing. He started the school, I think, in January, and then March was COVID, and that's you know, I mean, we barely survived. You know, we barely survived, and it took a lot of diligence and a lot of hard work to keep us alive, and now we're thriving once again.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about that kind of approach of, oh, anyone can do it, right? It's like even with my YouTubing, I try to mentor people, but the first thing I tell them is like, if I give you a task, you know, like, do it. And it's amazing how many people won't even do a task. Like one guy, I love him to death, but like, and he paid me money to like teach him how to YouTube, but he would never show up. So eventually, I was like, I don't want to take money from you anymore. I don't want to. I'm your friend. I don't want to take money from you and you not show up. And he's like, okay, I understand. Like, I could have just kept taking money, but he would just never show up. It's like, so, like, some people just like, they want to get under that illusion that I'm learning or I'm doing, but they don't actually want to do.
Oh, but isn't that the very first thing you need to do is show up?
Yeah.
Like, that's the very first, the task that needs to happen is you need to show up. And after that, like, then there are multiple tasks after that, but you need to, at the very minimum, show up.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first aspect.
And it's interesting because this friend was a jiu-jitsu black belt too. So it's like a lot of these skills don't, like, what you learn in jiu-jitsu should transfer over, but sometimes it's just like, it doesn't transfer over. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, so, you know, I know some exceptional black belts. I mean, but they can't teach for shit. I know a lot of pro fighters that, you know, that have been in the, this is no means, he's Dan Henderson. I love Dan. Dan was one of my training partners, and I was at Team Quest for years. Dan can't teach. He's not. I remember one day he was going over some Greco stuff, and one of the other guys was like, this isn't working for me. And Dan just goes, works for me. Like, and I'm like, that. I mean, so the thing is, for a lot of high level athletes, it works for them, and because it works for them, they can't then go with someone that it doesn't work for them. They can't. Now, I've never been a gifted athlete. So as an instructor, I always recognize that not everyone's going to get it. And I might have to break it down and teach it a different way. And I think that a lot of my teaching has come from not being an exceptional athlete, you know, because like an athlete, you teach them stuff and it just clicks immediately. And then how do you explain like how things click like that? You know what I mean? Like, you go with someone that doesn't have that ability, an athlete's going to get frustrated. Because like, look, I got it like this. How can you not figure it out? And it's just like, it's a different animal.
I think that's such a great thing you mentioned, Gabe. I think I'm very much the same, right? Even when I did Kung Fu as a kid too, and I was like one of the slowest Kung Fu kids, and it pissed off my parents. You know, Asian parents are like, oh, you're making me look bad. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's I'm learning Kung Fu. But it's like, I would be able to do all these things, but eventually, I still remember a lot of that Kung Fu stuff because it took me so long that it's like molded. You know, it didn't just click, right? And I think with teaching, it's the same. The harder it is for you to get it, sometimes it makes it the best for you to teach because you have to explain it to yourself 100 times, which then makes it so you can explain to other people 100 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many people that want to do things, and like you were talking about the MMA thing. I've had multiple people that have come in that want to be MMA fighters, and you know, okay, and I've had other guys that I've had one kid that was 18. I'm committed. This is what I'm going to do with my life, and so I ran him through what it would be like to get ready for a fight. He only lasted 2 days. By day 2, he's like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do this? It's not like you're getting beaten up. You haven't even really gotten to like hard sparring or anything like that. I've just been pushing you the way I would get pushed, the way I had to push myself to get ready for fights, and you know, and it's okay. I think it's good to understand that what you think something is and what it actually is are two very, very different things.
Yeah, who is it that I interviewed? I interviewed someone else, and he told a funny story about one of his first MMA fights. And after he beat the guy became a very successful businessman. And the guy actually saw him many years later and thanked him. It's like, thank you. You told me what I should have done, and I did it.
I have a story like that. I have a guy, and actually, Josh. I still talk to Josh. He's very successful, and he's so I was doing conditioning at this strength and conditioning at this gym in Riverside, and the owner goes, "This guy Josh wants to fight MMA. Would you sit and talk to him?" This is when I was a WC champion. I'm like, sure. And Josh was probably like 200 plus pounds, and so I meet Josh, and he's like, "I hit so hard. I don't think you understand how hard I hit. Like, I'm basically a younger Chuck Liddell." And I'm like, "Wow, okay, I hit hard." And he goes, and I went to a jiu-jitsu club and nobody could tap me. And I'm like, okay, and he goes, yeah. So so at the time, Josh was running a construction company, and he goes, my wife said, if I can make as much money doing MMA, then I can quit the business. And I started laughing because I asked him how much he made, and he told me, I'm like, okay, first up, you're not going to make that much. Maybe in like 5 years, 6 years, maybe if you're as good as you say you are. But let's go into the they had a little room there. I'm like, let's go into the room in a aerobics room and we'll just try things out. Let's grapple first, because you were saying that you're untappable. I tapped him like fucking 10 times in less than 5 minutes, like to the point where like his eyes were fucking, no way, I'm so strong, no way that, and it turned out that he had trained with a bunch of white belts, young, like it was a brand new school, and he white belts, and apparently the instructor did him a disservice by not training with them. But he wasn't as strong as he thought he was, and I threw him around like a rag doll. He goes, well, striking's really that's where I'm gonna excel. So I'm like, okay, let's put the gloves on and spar. I was taxiing him up. I grabbed him to knee him in the stomach, and he ducked down, and I hit him in the nose and broke his nose. And so he goes home, and his wife is losing her shit because his nose is broken. But he went back to working, and now his construction company is massively successful. He actually owns like 2 CrossFit gyms on top of that, and he trained off and on, but like he realized that that MMA is not what he thought it was, and instead of trying to push for this dream that's not a realistic dream anyways, he went back to doing what he's doing, and now he's a very successful businessman, which he should have done in the first place.
Yeah, that's such a great story. And it makes me think of something else. Give me 1 second. Something. Sorry, my alarm went off. So I guess this part will get cut out in the final. Let's see. What you talked about how he's kind of training with white belts. I'm starting to see that in jiu-jitsu now too. Unfortunately, as the sport gets more popular, there was this jiu-jitsu place in the LA area. I think it closed down. It was a lot of branches, but they had a white belt like teaching classes, and I was like, oh, that's. Yeah, I tell jiu-jitsu guys that, they're like, what? But like I've been seeing kind of like that type of, I wouldn't call it bullshito, but that kind of like dwindling down of jiu-jitsu happening more and more these few years.
Blue belts teaching, and I feel like that is is a blue belt going to be able to have some knowledge? Yes, but to put a blue belt in, or even a purple belt, I feel like is not. I think brown is about the point where like you can start teaching and pass on knowledge. Now, admittedly, I've met some monster purple belts, but I think the journey of jiu-jitsu, you need to be seasoned. You know what I mean? Like blue and white and purple, you're getting your seasoning, but it's not. I think you need to have some time in to do it. I mean, I'll tell you, like if I went to a school and there was anything but a black belt, I would walk right out. I mean, that's but again, I'm a 30-degree black belt. So if I were to walk in and like there was a blue belt teaching, I'd be like, all right, well, actually, I can't say that. I went to my hometown about 3 years ago, and the ranking guy was a purple belt. and I went in, but I was blown away. I mean, I now admittedly, is he probably better than everyone else in the gym? Probably, but I was not impressed whatsoever with his skill set and how he was teaching. And I sat there, I was respectful. Actually, I came in, it was a no-gi class. I didn't have, I came in as a guest. But I was just like, wow, this is kind of garbage. So.
Yeah. Do you think this is the inevitable path of jiu-jitsu as it gets more popular, or do you think like jiu-jitsu will be one of the few martial arts to self-regulate itself enough that we won't be seen as much of like white belts teaching or blue belts teaching when they shouldn't be teaching and stuff like that?
I don't think there's enough regulation in jiu-jitsu as is. I mean, so I'm a different I'll be honest with you, like the new style, the new school way of teaching jiu-jitsu, I think is just silly. I think it detracts from what jiu-jitsu should be about. It should be about submitting people. It should be about getting the finishes. Like a Damian Maia is a perfect example of what a jiu-jitsu player should be doing. Not, jumping to 50-50 and getting a sweep or a submit or an advantage and then jumping up like they're a fucking world champion. So I don't think jiu-jitsu is doing enough regulating as it is. No, don't get me wrong. I think that the sport side is important and it definitely has its place. But if you have a guy that can't, just has never worked on anything standing, has never had to deal with someone punching them, hasn't had to deal with a real fight, I think you're doing an injustice to your students. It's not like everyone should. I don't think everyone should be a fighter, but I'll definitely say that I feel that I respect the jiu-jitsu guys that have at least had a couple fights to at least get a feel for it and understand it, even if they lost. Like, good, even if it's amateur, like at least you have a concept of what it's about.
Yeah, totally, man. Just being punched in the face just a few times.
So, I mean, for me, when I started jiu-jitsu, it was so efficient and so like that was like you would get submitted and like the idea of it was so much, you knew right away if it was effective and efficient or not. And I feel that now with jiu-jitsu. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that the new school style probably has its use. But I had a guy come in from a Gracie Baja school, and we at my school we start on the feet. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, he's a purple belt. Like, what do you mean, what are we doing? No, we got to go to our knees. Why? What fight starts on your knees? And he's like, well, but in our school, we start on the knees. And I go, that's great. You're not in your school. Like, you're a guest in my school. And he was massively out of his element. And I'm like, what type of fucking school where everything is on, like, I not in a million years. I understand if you have a massive amount of programming, you're just working on groundwork, then that's fine. But such a deficiency to have a purple belt that doesn't even know how to handle someone standing. I mean, don't all fights start standing? I mean, excluding jiu-jitsu, even jiu-jitsu matches, they start on the feet, even though the people will flop to their butts. I feel that in a lot of ways, jiu-jitsu is already not regulated enough.
Yeah, I see that totally, and it's funny because one time I went to Gracie Baja school and they were practicing takedowns, so that was pretty cool. So the thing about, I think, especially the Gracie Baja brand is it really depends on the school.
Yeah,
Gracie Baja gets too much flack, but I think it really depends on the school.
I'm not in any way. I know some except. I mean, like Humolo. I mean, Humolo's a fucking gangster, man. There's no you're gonna go to his school, and if you go to his school, you better fucking bring your lunch. I'm definitely not in any way. It just so happened to have been at Gracie Baja School, and that's a name that everyone knows. Again, it's not, and like you said, there are some exceptional instructors, and the branding of Gracie Baja doesn't immediately make it less.
Yeah. What is next for you? Are you gonna keep growing your business? Are you okay just having Kaiju? Tell me about that. Do you want to move into other stuff?
I just like my I'm actually currently looking for a larger location, building it to 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. I would like to, I want my home gym to be as successful as possible before I think about branching out and doing anything else. I mean, I can see myself opening up a second. I don't want to do like a franchise. I don't want to do like 5, 6 gyms because I think one, excluding Gracie Baja and a few others, they just don't work. And two, I'm very, very hands-on, and I don't want to spread myself too thin. And what happens is if you have 3, 4 schools, it's impossible for you to give each school the amount of time that are needed to ensure that the school, and look, I don't get me wrong, Adrian is an exceptional instructor, and I could put him in a school, and I have no doubts that he would, run it with the same feeling that same. I'm trying to think of the word, value that I do, but I'm a very hands-on person, and I can't not give as much as possible. So, I could realistically see opening a second one at some point. But again, I don't want to I want my first school. We're only going into our 4th year. And there's still a massive amount of growth, and I'm still, I'm content and happy, but I always see more and more. But I could see maybe a second, or even, although I have I have a few brown belts that they said as soon as they get their black belt, they're going to branch off and potentially open up other schools. And I mean, we'll see what happens when that time comes. But as of right now, I'm focused on building the current Kaiju as good as possible. And then we are a part of the Tsunami, so it's not Kaiju. We're a branch of the Tsunami brand with John Owano, and
I see.
And yeah, so I'm not focusing too much on anything but the primary location at this point.
That's great. That's great. And just talking to you, I can tell like you're a very giving type of guy. Like even just when you mentioned you have students that are brown belts that might one day open up their own thing, like there wasn't any kind of like jealousy or resentment or anything, which I know a lot of instructors they're like, no, my student's mine, kind of thing.
I want everyone to be successful. I want everyone to like even like you were talking about Abel. I wanted success with him. I wish he would have done things a little differently for his own success. You know what I mean? Because when he made the decision to do it, I would have supported him if it would have been in a different way. And not that I in any way wanted him to not succeed. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to prosper. I have no, I don't know. When students have left, and we've had students that have left, if you aren't happy here and you find that there's another location that it better, like for instance, I don't do year-long contracts. I do month to month. If somebody wants to go, they can go. It's not, I don't lock anyone into a long-term period. It's, if you're happy here, then you're going to stay. And most of my students stay for, and I think that has to do with the environment and the culture of the gym. So leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess my last question is, how did you meet Adrian? Since as far as when I reconnected with, he disappeared for a while, and then when I reconnected with him, he was at Kaiju. I was like, "Whoa, cool! How'd you meet him?"
Actually, I met him through Abel.
Oh,
yeah, because they both trained at the same place, and Adrian's a very, very loyal guy, and great instructor. Musical savant on top of that. Good dude.
That's awesome. Well, now that clarifies it, because I just remember Adrian and I were in touch in 2016, and then he disappeared for like 3 years, and then suddenly I found him again because he was asking me for footage he sent me of his wife taking down the homeless guy. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I got rid of it because you asked me to. So and then he's like, oh yeah, it's in my drive. And then we reconnected again. But that's how I got back in touch with him. And then I found out he was like Kaiju. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah. No, it's I have nothing but the highest praise for Adrian. He's a great guy, and his jiu-jitsu is ridiculous. He's a savant at jiu-jitsu. So
yeah, I think Another thing we should do is you, me, and Adrian should do a video together in person. Maybe I'll come visit you guys, and the three of us can sit down and like analyze some Bushido, or like show you guys show some stuff or whatever. So we'll plan that.
I'm up for it. Yeah, I'm always open to watch some Bushido.
And there is a lot of them, man.
It's super entertaining to me. I really love that shit.
It seems like a lot of Bushido has been. I don't think it's been emerging. Just the West has been seeing it from India. China's been called out by Xu Xiaodong and all these like legit people, but India is still a desert where like all this Bushido is still running free, and it's got more than 1 billion people. It's crazy seeing the stuff from India.
I mean, it's like even you look at the spread of MMA. You know what I mean? Like it's international, and like they were having fights in India as well, but they were very like the Indian fighters were very, very low tier because they didn't know anything, or even you look at China's just now slowly getting some MMA accolades. They have their first female champion. I can't think of her name, but I mean, it takes time and to evolve, and there I think there's even there's even a Chinese MMA fighter that got banned by the government in China for beating up all the like the traditional martial arts. He'd have challenge matches with them and then put them on social media, and the government shut that down because it's there's always going to be people that bullshit and lie and try to be something that they're not, and you know what, good for them. But I always enjoy when the truth is shown.
Yeah, exactly. Xu Xiaodong's the guy you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the draw of what at least some of the content we present on Fight Commentary Breakdowns is just seeing these people with these fronts just like come crashing down.
It's entertaining to me. I think it's great. I'm still waiting for a dojo storm. I want someone to come in here and like with their death art. And I mean, I have a open challenge. Anyone wants to come in with their death art, sign a waiver, and I'll let you try to kill me.
Wow. If this were a few years ago, there was a Wing Chun school that probably could have come and like tried their Wing Chun on you, but I'm not in touch with them anymore. But that the instructor of that Wing Chun school claimed he beat a Gracie back in the day.
Of course he did.
Of course he did, right? Yeah. And I told Adrian's old coach that, and he's like, "Oh, really? If a Gracie heard about it, they'd go dojo storming him."
Yeah. They would have absolutely. I mean, look, everyone's gonna say what they want to say, but like I said, an open door invitation to any traditionalist. I mean, my buddy Nam Pham down in Westminster had a Kung Fu guy come in and want to just do only stand up with him, and Nam beat the crap out of him. The guy said no ground, and Nam's like, well, I mean, isn't fighting ground as well? But the guy's like, no, only standing, and Nam beat the crap out of him. So I mean,
yeah, I remember that fight. I remember that fight very vividly, and actually, I got in touch with that Kung Fu master too. So he does Hong Jia. So he does the Vietnamese branch, Hung Jia, I think it's called in Vietnam, and apparently he was fighting with like some kind of a spinal issue, so he barely could feel his left arm. So it's like
sure, yeah, it's of course. Like, look, if things are not going to work, there has to be a reason why they're not working, right? You have to make your excuse. I mean, aren't what they say? Excuses are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm gonna borrow that. I'm gonna use that from you. I like that. Excuses are like assholes. Everyone has one. Yeah. Well, to viewers of Fight Commentary Breakdowns, Fight Commentary Chats, I think our time's about up. So again, this was Gabe. Gabe, this was an awesome conversation. Definitely gonna come and like do a video in person together. For those of you, Gabe Ruediger, you can search him up online. There's a lot of information about him, and I'll put some links too. And of course, I'll link to Kaiju so you guys can check him out.
Yeah, we have that. We have the Instagram. We got the Facebook. Probably gonna, unfortunately, against my better judgment, start a TikTok because apparently that's what everyone likes now. I fucking hate it, but I'm gonna do it just because that's what we have to do as a business.
Yeah.
Kaiju MMA. Come find it, and Well, definitely, if you want to come do a video and watch Bullshido stuff, I'm all in. Let me know.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. This will be great. This will be great. So I'll let Adrian know too. The three of us or something. We'll have a good time.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. So for those of you watching, I'm gonna log off now, Gabe. I can talk with you for a few more minutes afterwards. But everyone, thank you. Go follow Gabe and Kaiju MMA.